So, you want to train for aesthetics and you want the body of a Greek god. Believe me, I understand your desire to achieve this goal because it is something I continue to chase each and every single day. But that endless chase towards this goal is what keeps us hungry and keeps us disciplined and motivated as we continue to train harder and harder to achieve these goals we set for ourselves in and outside of the gym. Before I get into the video, I do just want to say one thing. This is a video made for people who already have a strength base. If you are a beginner who does not have a strength base yet, you haven't really been training compound movements, you have not been trying to get stronger, I recommend you start with a 2 to 3 day a week full body program. Get stronger at compound lifts, build a strength base, and then come back to this video because this is going to go much more in depth on the things you need to achieve an aesthetic physique far beyond the initial strength base you need as a beginner lifter. So if that sounds good to you guys, make sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and let's get right into the video. Alright, so the first point I have on my notes right here are no more body part splits. Now, what is a body part split? A lot of the times people go into the gym and they will just train back, they will just train chest, they will just train arms, they will just do shoulders, and they will just do legs, and they train each muscle group once per week. And that is not the most optimal thing to do if your goal is to create an aesthetic physique and to sculpt and build the body. It's just not ideal for you. So instead of hitting each muscle group once per week, split that up in between 2 to 3 times per week. So let's say you're training chest once a week right now, and you're doing 14 sets on that one day. Now let's say you split up the frequency. So now you're hitting chest once on Monday and then once on Thursday. These are just examples, by the way. You don't have to hit them on Monday and Thursday. So now that you have 2 days instead of 1, that means you should essentially split up the volume. So if you're doing 14 sets on the 1 day per week, now you're gonna split that up and do 7 sets and 7 sets. Or maybe just an extra set on this day, maybe a set less this day. Split up the volume however you choose and whatever works best for you. Just don't train each muscle group once per week. You will not get a ton of muscle growth with that unless you're a beginner. Like I said, this is not tailored towards the beginners. So split up the frequency 2 to 3 times per week, split up the volume so you're not doing too much. A lot of times when people hear they need to start hitting their muscle groups more than once per week, we'll take the first example that I used with chest where you're hitting it once a week for 14 sets. Now a person hears you should train chest 2 to 3 times per week, and they think, okay, well now, yeah, I'll just do another chest day with another 14 sets. No, do not fall into that trap. It is a very easy trap to fall into, and this falls into the category of overtraining. Overtraining is very, very common when it comes to fitness. Everyone gets very excited, you get all motivated, you get determined to achieve your goals, and you think more is better, when in reality, that couldn't be further from the truth. A lot of people are overtraining in the gym. All you really need for weekly volume is 9 to 20 sets per week per muscle group. That's it. And split up the volume 2 to 3 times per week for each muscle. That's it. Very simple. But a lot of times people will do endless amounts of sets all of the time, and that is not going to increase the amount of muscle that you can put on, and it will actually hurt your muscle growth. So when you're overtraining, you are causing problems to the muscle building process because you're not allowing time for your muscle to properly recover. Recovery is a huge part of the muscle building process, and it's something I'm going to go even more in depth on later in the video. Alright, moving on to the second point, proper program. As I talked about sets, splitting up your volume equally, so you're not doing too much on one day, no overtraining, right? Making sure you're hitting each muscle 2 to 3 times per week. And now a lot of people think, they look up online, oh, what rep ranges should I do if I want to build muscle and build a lot of it? A lot of times online when you look up the proper rep range to do if you want to build muscle, a lot of the times they'll give you the 8 to 12 rep range. And yeah, the 8 to 12 rep range will build muscle, but so will a bunch of other rep ranges. You shouldn't limit yourself to one particular rep range if you want to build muscle, because the truth is you should focus on building strength sometimes in the lower rep ranges, and you should focus more on the higher rep ranges for some other exercise. You should utilize both kinds of rep ranges. Me personally, on my compound lifts, when I start off my workout, I'm typically working in the lower rep range, 4 to 6 reps. That will still build muscle. I utilize both different types of rep ranges depending on the exercises that I'm doing. Most of the time when I'm doing compound lifts in the gym, like bench, squat, deadlift, barbell row, etc., so on and so forth, I'm working in the lower rep ranges to build strength and build foundational strength on those exercises, so that translates well into the isolation work later on in the workout. So you should not just work in that 8 to 12 rep range. Experiment with rep ranges, see what works best for you. I recommend working in a multitude of different kinds of rep ranges just to experience the benefits of doing all of it. Just don't lift too heavy. If you're working in the lower rep ranges, don't lift as heavy as you possibly can. Maybe leave a couple reps in the tank because you will tax your central central nervous system very, very quickly. If you're working to absolute failure all of the time, it's not good for your joints. It's not good for your central nervous system because, like I said, recovery is extremely, extremely important. Speaking of compound lifts and isolations and all those different kinds of exercises, that brings me to point number 3, exercise selection. The exercise selection you choose in the gym becomes very, very important because, like I said, if you're doing too much, it's going to become a problem. It's going to hinder your recovery process. So you have to figure out important exercises to prioritize in your routine so you get the best bang for your buck out of those exercises, and therefore you're not overtraining all of the time. So in order to maximize exercise selection, it's important to start off your workout with compound lifts because they're going to be the most taxing, they're going to make you the most tired, and you get the best bang for your buck on all of those exercises. So start off your workout with some compound lifts. I mentioned some compound lifts in the beginning of the video, and the best part about compound lifts is that there are variations of all of them. So for example, like the bench press, you can do a barbell bench press or you can do a dumbbell bench press. Experiment with what works for you. Me personally, I have found that dumbbells have built my chest more than a barbell has, so I stick with dumbbells when I decide to do a bench press variation for my compound lift. I personally prefer the dumbbells. I know a lot of people ask you when they come up to you, "Hey bro, what's your bench?" I don't really care about that number anymore. I used to be very attached to it, and if you're still attached to that number you see on your bench press, but you're not seeing a ton of muscle growth, it might be time to take a break from it, focus on the dumbbells, and chances are you're gonna see a lot more muscle growth switching it up. Moving on to point number 4, progressive overload. This progressive overload is something that a lot of people have heard of, and they think that you have to constantly increase the weight every single time if you want to achieve progressive overload, and that is simply just not the case. Progressive overload can be manipulated in a bunch of different ways and not just increasing the weight, right? For example, if you've been stuck on incline dumbbell for a number of weeks now and you can't get past, let's say 60 pounds, you're using 60-pound dumbbells on incline dumbbell and you're stuck there. You're stuck at, let's say, 8 reps and you can't get past that. A way to potentially achieve progressive overload is to hold it at the top maybe and focus on the eccentric portion of the movement. Focus on going maybe slower down and then exploding up. Change up the tempo of the reps you're doing. Little things like that allow you to achieve progressive overload without the need to increase the weight all of the time. And if you utilize these types of little things for progressive overload, you are going to experience a lot of muscle growth. I'm telling you that right now. And let's say you've been on a program for 8 weeks and at first you experienced a lot of muscle growth and it was great and it was awesome and you were progressing, and now you're starting to stall out. It was all kind of up, it was all pretty much uphill, then you start to level out and plateau. That might be a sign to change up the routine, because a lot of the times in our training programs, the best thing to do is the thing that you're not doing the most up. I just started doing deadlifts again and I'm already starting to see my back blow up. I haven't done deadlifts in 4 freaking years and I just started doing them again. I'm starting to see a big change in my back, and the reason for that is because my body hasn't been used to that. That doesn't mean to change up your routine all of the time. Stick with it until it stops working. Once it really stops working, that might be a sign to change up the exercise selection and change one compound out for another compound or a variation. You get the idea. Moving on to point number 5. Probably my favorite one on this list because it is perhaps the most important point I'm going to make in this video, and that is the mind-muscle connection. When you go into the gym and your goal is to build muscle and tone, as the girls like to say, people think you walk into a gym and you just start moving weight around. And to a point, that's true. But when you're doing an exercise and you really want to experience muscle growth, this little thing called the mind-muscle connection is very, very important, and it's crucial to building more muscle. The stronger your mind-muscle connection, the more muscle fibers you can recruit. The more muscle fibers that you can recruit, the more muscle that you can potentially build. Granted that you're eating enough protein, calories. I'm gonna get into that in another video. And I have personally noticed, when I dropped the ego, I said, you know what? I'm gonna start at square one. I'm gonna stop doing all the heavy lifting I was doing and start at square one. Start with light weights, focus on slow and controlled tempo reps, and really focus on feeling my chest out, feeling my biceps, feeling my back, all these things. I took my entire workout routine, took a big step back, and changed the entire way I was training. My priority during my workouts are the mind-muscle connection, because that is the #1 thing when it comes to building muscle. And if you don't utilize the mind-muscle connection, I'm sorry, you're not optimizing your muscle building potential. So if you're someone that really hasn't been utilizing this that much, take a step back, introduce it heavily into your routine, and I guarantee you are going to see the most extraordinary muscle gains you've ever seen. And if you're someone who already prioritizes this, like myself, you already know what I'm talking about. So really focus on slow and controlled movement, slow in the eccentric, fast in the concentric, and really feel your muscle out during the movement. I'm telling you, man, it's a game changer. Point number 6, rest and recovery. I touched on a little bit of it in the beginning of the video, but I'm going to emphasize this again. Rest and recovery is so freaking important. Like I said, you should be doing 20 reps at the max per week per muscle. Do not do any more than 20. 20 is the absolute max you should be doing, and honestly, for most of the muscle groups you're training, I wouldn't do more than 16. But experiment, see where your body responds well to. This is not an exact science, but this is why we have ranges, so we can experiment and see what works best for us and our personal goals. Now, when it comes to rest and recovery, yeah, all that's cool with the gym and stuff and training frequency and all that, it's great. But what about outside of the gym? What about sleep? How many hours of sleep are you getting a night? Sleep is a far overlooked aspect of the muscle building process, and tons of gains are made while you sleep. If you are not getting at least 6 hours of sleep a night, I say 6 to 8 hours. If you can average 7 hours of sleep a night, I would say that is more than ideal. But if you're getting 4 hours of sleep a night and you're training hard in the gym a couple days a week, it's going to be very hard for your muscles to recover properly, and therefore harder to build more muscle. So prioritize sleep. I do personally in my life. Sleep is a huge aspect of me being able to be productive, not just in the gym, but in other things in my life when it comes to business, things like that. Recovery is super, super, super important, not just with the gym, not just for your muscles, but for anything in life. All right, point number 7, cardio and lifting. In the beginning of my fitness journey, I was under the impression that cardio was a silent gains killer, and that if you did cardio, you were going to be killing your gains. And that's just not the truth whatsoever, as long as you're eating enough calories. If you're not eating enough calories and you're lifting and you're doing cardio, it might be a problem. You might end up being under recovered. However, if you're eating the proper amount of calories for your goals and you're doing cardio and lifting weights, it could be a very extraordinary thing. Cardio was a huge addition to my workout routine, and it's not like I started doing it all of the time. It was just something I started to do 2 to 3 times a week and really focus on it for 10 to 20 minutes at a time, get my heart rate up. I personally have been using the Stairmaster a lot. I've been getting great results from doing that just a couple of times a week. But don't get it twisted. Don't do more cardio and less lifting. What I recommend is mostly lifting plus some cardio. If you do that, you're golden. That is a recipe for success, and I've seen tremendous results personally in my life when it comes to doing that. Lifting is pretty much the main priority, and as training for aesthetics is the main priority. Being healthy, having mobility, all of that stuff is extremely important, and that is a huge priority when it comes to my workouts. But cardio has been a great addition and a great tool I have been utilizing to regulate fat and keep fat off my body and to stay lean all year round. So introducing cardio a couple times a week, getting 10,000 steps a day in, utilizing your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, are all going to be very important when it comes to keeping fat off of your body. And strength training plus a little bit of cardio, I mean, you really can't beat it. And for the last point, this has nothing to do with training, your diet. Now, this is a huge topic to discuss and really get into and to dive deep on when it comes to training for aesthetics, which is why I'm going to be covering the diet in its entirety in a whole nother video in a part 2 for this. How to eat for aesthetics, because eating is more important for creating an aesthetic physique than the actual training is. Obviously, both are important, but if I had to lean one way or the other, the diet makes or breaks how your physique looks. So ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up the video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all learned something from this. I get tons of questions all the time from people in my life when it comes to building muscle, when it comes to diet and all this stuff. So I'm really hoping people are watching this content and really utilizing the information that I'm giving to you guys. All this information that I'm giving you has worked in my own personal experience and has worked with my friends as well. I have a couple friends who really just started getting into the gym, got them on the right programs, got them on the right diet, and things are starting to change. It's a really cool thing. And seeing that change in their life really motivated me and inspired me to put all the information that I have stored up here onto this channel so you all can learn from it as well. Thank you all so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.